I'm heading to the Museum of Childhood in Bethnal Green, which is part of the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Morning, Derek. My name is Rhian Harris, and I have the great privilege of being the director of this extraordinary institution.
Can you tell me something about the history of the building first?
Well, the building has a wonderful history. If you look at the fantastic architecture behind us, the ironwork in particular was part of the original V&A in South Kensington. After the Great Exhibition in 1851, they built a temporary structure. It lasted for a short period of time. They then demolished that building, but they carried parts of the ironwork to the East End of London to create a new museum. So the museum opened in 1872, and it was called the East London Museum of Art and Science. It continues as a place where all different sorts of exhibitions happen, but not specifically for children or about childhood. From the 1920s onwards, a visionary curator called Arthur Sabin noticed that there were loads of local kids running around this building and they weren't really engaging with any of the objects on display. So he decided to create a corner specifically for children and encourage various people to donate objects that will be attractive to the children. And he grows this bit of the collection, but it doesn't actually become a proper museum of childhood until 1974, where a very well-known director of the V&A at the time, Roy Strong, creates it as the National Museum of Childhood, and giving it for the first time in its history a clear curatorial remit.
Now, the layout of the museum, I believe it's sort of in 4 galleries, so to speak.
First of all, there's a gallery called Moving Toys. It's about encouraging children and families to understand about movement and how toys are constructed when they physically move. Could be a simple clockwork toy, right through to quite a sophisticated optical toy. Our second gallery is called Creativity. It's about objects that will encourage creativity in children, will get them excited and interested in doing creative things. And in that gallery, we have examples of children's own creativity, so drawings or works they might make themselves. And then in our third gallery, we call the childhood galleries. And these are essentially a bit more sort of social historical, where we look at the kind of clothes children wore, the kind of objects that are used to care for children historically. And the fourth gallery we have is taken up primarily by our temporary exhibition space. And our current exhibition is called Game Plan, and it's about the history of board games. And there really is something for everybody in that exhibition. It starts off with a game of Senet, that was a very ancient Egyptian game, and it goes right up to date to computerized games. But it's all about based on the board. So what we're discovering is families are coming in, you've got grandparents, parents and children all coming together and playing really hard and being really competitive in here. There's also a small bit there, a permanent part of the gallery, that is called Good Times. It's about going on holiday, being by the seaside, joining clubs like Guides and Scouts. It's about the good times of childhood.
So what early exhibits have you got here?
The earliest object in the museum is an Egyptian paddle doll from 1300 BC. We don't have many things that old, but it is obviously a very old piece and one of the real star objects on display in the galleries. We have a programme where we have various festivals across the year. They often take place outside the museum because we've got fantastic grounds. So we celebrate St George's Day. People from all over the world come to celebrate that festival. We also have a big summer festival. It's a bit like East London's Summer Fete, where everybody comes and enjoys that too. So we have lots of ways to try and make the museum as inclusive as possible. And I think we're lucky because we are both a local community museum, a national museum, and we also have an international profile. It's quite unusual for a museum to stretch from community right through to international.
So do you have a favourite item, or do you have somewhere where you tend to go more often?
I love so many of them, but if I have to choose, I love the dolls' houses. I think they're incredible. And they teach you about everything, about how people lived, how they interacted with each other, gender divides, class divides, because you've got servants in the household, you've got women that occupy particular spaces, children occupy particular spaces. They're also exquisitely beautiful as well. So you can think about aesthetics and taste from other times. You've got them all completely encapsulated in one small box, and people love them. They are some of the most popular things in the museum. They were actually used partly as status symbols historically to teach young women how to keep house, because they'd be managing, big, huge houses.
Yeah, of course.
It's only later on, really, when they start to become actual playthings. It's not just about nostalgia, it's about memory and identity. It goes straight through to here, and that's what this museum is really about. It's about connecting with your past. If you're a child today, connecting with who you are today, and then looking forwards.